Welcome back to Kingston Reviews. Derek here. Thank you guys for tuning into another video. I really appreciate it. I also wanted to thank the 1,500 subscribers that we finally hit. Thank you guys so much for that. And because of that, I wanted to give you guys a bit of a story time, tell you a little bit more about my history and how I ended up doing what I'm doing today. And I think it's really interesting story, and I wanted to share that with you guys. If you guys like content like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. But let's get into the story. So about a year and a half ago, to my surprise, I was actually let go by my previous company. For those that have been following me for the last couple years or so that I've been working on the channel, as I said, I was a regional vice president for a large facility service company. What we did is we provided housekeeping and laundry services to long-term care facilities, primarily some acute care facilities and some hospitals in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. And I was really a part of this company, starting off as an account manager and working my way up to that position. Now, keep in mind, I actually really didn't just sought after the position. This was brought to me because the opportunities were there, and I thought I was good friends with my boss and with the people that I worked with. But we're going to talk about what happens in these corporate environments and how people are kind of backstabbers and will do anything to get your position. And I'll tell you what I did afterwards and how it actually all worked out for the best. So I started off with this company managing a couple sites as an account manager, did that for about a year, and then I had an opportunity to become a district manager in their long-term care division. Now, I had never worked long-term care before, so when they asked me about it, I actually turned them down the very first time, and then I had a second opportunity for it again, and I didn't turn it down the second time. But once I started the position, I learned that I really enjoyed working with the people, working with the different personalities, actually seeing a lot of the residents and patients. Really enjoyed it. It's one of the toughest jobs working in long-term care. I think I talked about that in one of my previous videos. This is a very tough environment. You're not just cleaning someone's office, you're cleaning their room, you're cleaning a place where they live, and you're providing services to people that don't have many other options, right? They can't go anywhere. They're kind of stuck at the facility. So you really get close to all these people and the employees that I worked with, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. But on the corporate side of things, working with my coworkers, which I loved the people that worked with me, but there were a few people that really were vying for my position. And I believe that was the reason why I lost my job. Was I had a couple people that really were looking out for themselves, but looking for any opportunities to undermine me. And this happened multiple times throughout my career. There were people always trying to look for ways in which they could undermine me. And by undermining me, they felt like they elevated themselves to an opportunity that I had. Now, keep in mind, I had the benefit where a lot of these people never had positions of high authority or high income. I had already had that in my career. I'd already made much more money than I was making at that time. And so money was not always my motivation. And so I could operate in a much different light than a lot of the other people that were around me. So on top of long-term care being a really difficult environment to work in, just because, like I said, you're helping people where they live, it also was a time period during which was absolutely terrible for long-term care. Nobody wanted to work in long-term care because they thought all the facilities had. We had all these really restrictive guidelines for wearing masks, wearing the full suit. It was really hot to work in some of these environments because you had on a mask, you had on a gown, you had on a suit, and of course we had to work with people that had, like, just because they had in a building didn't mean that we couldn't go to work in there. So we had extremely high turnover. I wanted to elaborate on working in an environment a little bit more. First, wanted to thank all the people that worked with me in this environment. I thought very highly of them. I think that for someone to come to work for 10, 12, sometimes as little as $8 an hour, but $15 an hour, $10 an hour, $8 an hour, coming to work and then going into a room in an environment where they really thought that they could get sick and die, and they still came to work. I wanted to thank all the people that did that with me, for me, and for the residents. Really appreciated that. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of the people that I worked with really enjoyed me, is that I appreciated what they did for me. I knew that I couldn't do it on my own, and they were just as much a part of our success as I was. And I wanted to thank people for doing that, because that was pretty scary. Very, very volatile environment. That volatility also created opportunities, and I was a part of a team between myself and my boss that created a business that started off at around $5 million in revenue, and we took the company to $25 million in revenue over the 2-year period from 2021 roughly to 2023. So I had an opportunity to hire hundreds of people, travel throughout 3 or 4 different states every single week. It was really an opportunity that a lot of people don't get that opportunity to have. However, the only issue that I had was I had a couple people that I worked with that I really felt like they were jealous of my position. I don't know if they were jealous of the position or they just felt like they could do my position better. That's probably what they were thinking. But beware of what you wish for. Because when you get it, you may not really want it. It also brought to mind another thing that I always talked about was the Peters Principle, right? The Peters Principle essentially says that you're going to be promoted to your highest level of incompetence. So what that really means is that just because you get promoted to the next position doesn't mean that it's your best role or the right role for you. It may be better that you stay at a different position until the right time, or never move up to the next position. But I did have a couple people that were really just always gunning for me. And what they would do is just basically look for opportunities where I might make a mistake, or I might say or do something that they could report to my boss or report to my higher ups, that they could see if they could basically get me terminated. And I think maybe that's what happened to this day. I actually don't know exactly what happened, but I can tell you that I know it was something along those lines, because I was one of these people that I believed in subordination. I believed in listening to what my boss wanted me to do, and I did everything they wanted me to do. You want me to travel to Atlanta at 3 o'clock in the morning on the weekends, work every single day, work Christmas, work New Year's. I was one of those people that did that. I believed in giving my all 100% to a company. So I wanted to elaborate on this corporate environment that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and the people that were below me that were, I believe, trying to get my position and why they would do that. So the corporate environment breeds a certain type of personality that will go to the top, that it may not be the best type of people and personalities. And what I mean by this is, I remember when I first started working, I thought that everybody that had a position, managerial position or a leadership role, was in that position because they were best suited for it. They were good at it, and they were good people. I know that sounds pretty stupid and juvenile, but that's actually what I thought. I thought that if you were a doctor, a lawyer, if you were a manager, CFO, that you were in that role because you were best at that role and you were competent, and that you were a good person at that role. But the reality is, when you get in these corporate environments, you're motivated by hitting your numbers, motivated by hitting your goals, motivated. That's how they choose the next person. And so it can be very easy to be very cutthroat in order to hit your numbers, hit your goals. And by doing that, you may have to step on a few people. And here's the other thing that I found out. There are only so many regional vice president roles, right? There's only so many operational managers. There's only so many division manager roles. And what ends up happening is it bottlenecks, right? You've got all these people that were account managers that become district managers, and then the few people that want to be operations, regionals, presidents, they all start vying for those positions, and the only way they feel they can get it is by trying to pull somebody down that they feel they can get up above. Think about that just for a second, and it really makes sense. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I had one employee that started with me as an operations manager. She was referred to me by my boss. Once again, I just pretty much anything my boss said, I would just put that person in that role, do whatever he asked me to do. In fact, I should have held out on the package and I should have sued him, but that's a whole nother story. But he had me hire this young lady, right? Within the first 2 weeks, this young lady tried to blow me up on an email, copying my boss, saying that I didn't tell her to report something. I didn't tell her to do something. Fortunately for me, I never delete any of my emails. So this was about an accident. So at any accident at any site, we have to report that to everybody at corporate. It has to be reported immediately, not just for the safety component of it, but for the liability component. We need to go ahead and make sure it's reported. So I found out about an accident that happened in her territory, emailed her, told her to go ahead and do the reports to make sure it happens and get everybody notified. Long story short, she emailed my boss later saying, hey, he didn't tell me anything about it. He needs to communicate better, blah, blah, blah. Well, thankfully, everything that I did via email, right? And by the way, I do have a lot of my emails saved. So I did by email. And so I was able to find the email that I sent to her. I copied my boss and her back about it, saying like, hey, I did email you, did tell you. But long story short, that's a really simple way. Instead of coming to me and saying, hey, did you tell me about it? She tried to go to my boss to try to cut my legs out from under me. I do know for a fact that my termination had something to do with those two guys I mentioned. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it was all for the good. But I wanted to give you guys that example of what a corporate environment is like. So another story that I wanted to share with you is about one of the two guys that I mentioned to you that I really believe tried to undermine me the whole time. And I'm going to tell you why I think this is the case. So one of the guys actually left the company. We'll call him Biss. He left the company, and then I actually hired him back. Now, keep in mind, when we first started together, he was far more knowledgeable about the long-term care industry and actually helped me become more knowledgeable and pretty much like helped me get into the role that I ended up in. And then he had left the company, and then I actually brought him back to the company. And many people came to me on the side and said, hey, this guy is vying for your job. Now, I don't operate in fear. That's just something that I've always done in all my life. I just don't operate in fear. So whether he was going for my position or not, I actually don't care. To this day, I still don't care whether he did or didn't. But I'm pretty sure that he did, because there was a lot of jealousy there where he wanted to have the position that I had. He felt he was far more knowledgeable. And so he actively would try to record our team's calls and do a lot of things like that. And anything that I did, he'd talk behind my back and try to get me to say something to him that he could then take to my boss, which I'm sure maybe something like that happened. I don't really know. But be very wary of the people that you work with as you climb this corporate ladder, if that's what you decide to do. And the surprising thing about all this is, after giving them 2-3 years of giving them everything I had, I never let anybody come to my house, but I even let my boss come to my house and meet my wife and meet my kids, which I don't do that. I never have done that before. That's the first time. So I really trusted these people, and what I found out was that they ended up treating me worse than we treated some of the employees that we let go. I would have thought that if there was a problem with this company, because I had such great relationships with my boss and his higher ups, I would have thought if I had made a mistake or did something that needed to be let go for, that they would have had a conversation. I'm here to tell you that they never even had a conversation with me about it. So I'll tell you how they did it. So typically, whenever you had a problem with an employee, you would have them talk with HR, or you'd talk with your supervisor, and you'd be written up. I had never even been written up. Actually, I've never been written up for any position at all, but I'd never been written up at this company for anything that I did at all. And so I was very surprised when my boss asked me to have a meeting, and he said, "Hey, let's meet at the McDonald's down the road," which I thought, that's a little bit strange. I lived just a few minutes away. He's been to my house before. Why does he want to meet at McDonald's? So we end up going to the McDonald's, and as I get to the McDonald's, who do I see? I see my boss, I see the HR manager, and I think another HR manager as well was there. And I was thinking, why are they all here at the McDonald's gas station? And then it occurred to me, are they going to let me go, or is there something else going on they need to tell me about? And to my surprise, they did let me go, and they tried to do it at a McDonald's. Now, I was able to talk to them because I had all my personal effects in my car, and I needed to get that stuff out. But these guys treated me like an employee that had only been there for a month. They tried to let me go at the McDonald's. These are people that I worked with for 4 and 5 years every single day, right? I'm talking weekends. I'm talking, I gave them everything I could, and they tried to let me go at a McDonald's. Isn't that pretty crazy? That's something I don't think I'll soon forget. Now, at that moment, I can't deny that I was in shock. I was absolutely in shock. This was a complete surprise. You got to remember, I was never written up. I was never told that I did anything wrong. I didn't even know or seen this thing coming. And long story short, when that happened, I took about a day to really think about it. And as I thought through everything, I'm telling you guys, I came up with an epiphany. I had the idea hit me that if I can work as hard for these people and for their benefit, taking them, working with them, going from 5 million to 25 million in revenue, why wouldn't I just do that for myself? It took me about 24 hours to sit and think about that. And think, well, I did everything. I did the hiring. I was a part of the sales process. I was a part of every process that had to do with the growing of that business. Why in the world would I do that for somebody else, but I wouldn't do it for myself? And that was the moment that struck me. And it only took me 24 hours for me to really think about that. And once I made that decision in my mind, the very next day, believe it or not, I went out and I started making calls for my company. I set up my website, and believe it or not, within the first 3 months, I'd already booked enough business to actually maintain, maybe not exceed my previous income, but maintain my lifestyle. Within a year, I've already exceeded what I was doing working for someone else. And I want to tell you why this is the case. If you go to work for a company, you got to think about this. No matter what role you're in, let's say you're a delivery driver and you make $50,000 a year. The company is not going to make, $80,000 a year on you, paying you $50,000. They're going to make in the order of $1 or $2 million a year for the labor that you put in. It's multiples higher, okay? Across the board. Now that's for, depends on the position, depends on the company. But if I have a salesperson and I said, hey, I'm going to pay you $100,000, I don't want them to sell me $200,000 a year in business, right? I need them to sell $1 million a year in business, $1 million or $2 million a year in business. Companies need to make multiples in revenue greater than your salary. And once I really thought about this, and I thought, why would I want to go to work for someone which I can be terminated at any time and have no control over my destiny, or I can use all my skills and resources that I've used for years working for somebody else and go out and work for myself? And that's what I did. I actually started the very next day after I was let go and said, hey, you know what? I just had that epiphany. There was zero fear, zero concern, and I went all in. Now, I look back at it and I think I was pretty crazy for doing what I did, because I did sacrifice my savings. I sacrificed using my credit cards to get the business going. But I'm so thankful I'm in a position here today where I make more, which money isn't everything, but I do make more than what I was making before. But more importantly, my lifestyle is far greater. I don't travel at all. I'm home every single day with my wife and kids. I'm able to spend more time with my wife and kids. I have a much better relationship with my customers, with my family than I did before, because I'm not stressed out. I'm much more focused on making sure everyone's taken care of. I take care of all my employees. The fact is that I'm much happier now than I was before. So I wanted to encourage you guys, whenever things like this happen to you, what you might think is a disaster, whether that's a divorce or whether that's losing the job that you always thought you wanted, beware of what you wish for, because sometimes you get it and it's not really what you want. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but you do have to have a positive mindset, and then you got to get to work. You got to get to grinding. If you guys like content like this, please don't forget to like, comment. Let me know if you guys had similar experiences like this, working for a corporate entity and then losing your job. Especially, I lost my job when I was 50, right? I'm 51 years old right now, but I was almost 50 years old. I lost my job just a few months before my 50th birthday. And a lot of people would not be able to recover from that. If you guys had a story like that, let me know about it in the comments. But thank you for watching, and we'll guys catch you next time.